living fully alive in every way. You're listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol.
What would you do if you could? What dream is there buried in your heart, maybe covered over, maybe sort of forgotten, but it's still there? Hi there, friends. It's Dr. Carol, and this is Relationship Prescriptions. Maybe you are one of the few people that does not know who Bob Gough is. Well, I was privileged to spend a few days with Bob Gough at one of his Dream Big conferences, and then to have him in a conversation for this episode. Now, if you don't know who Bob Gough is, he's a New York Times bestselling author of Love Does and Everybody Always. He's the founder of Love Does, a nonprofit human rights organization that operates in a number of countries around the world, including Uganda, Nepal, Afghanistan, Somalia, and others. He speaks all over the place, and he's with us here today. Now, Bob's life has been amazing. He is a lawyer, has been a lawyer. He's also made some amazing differences for people around the world where there is no education available. And that is kind of a core that his nonprofit Love Does is create educational opportunities in war-torn countries. Well, today I'm going to talk with Bob Gough about taking action, about the understanding that there is a role where we have to step up and do it. And Bob has some amazing ways to think about that I know you will find encouraging. Now, we recorded this conversation just before Christmas, so you'll hear us say Merry Christmas, even though you're probably listening to this after the holiday season. But here is my conversation with who I now consider a friend, Bob Gough. Well, Bob, it is just so much fun, a pleasure, and an honor to have you. Thanks for being on our episode today.
Yeah, my pleasure to be with you again. And I've just loved when we got to spend some time together. I'm just glad we get to spend a little bit more right now.
You have had an amazing life. I've heard you talk a few times and read some of your books and followed a bit of what you've done. You've been all over the world and you've got a family and a home, and you've been an attorney. Let me just start by saying, what drives you? What is there inside you that leads you to do all this?
Oh, I'm just trying to stay one step ahead of the law most of the time. I think one of the things for me is I'm just very curious about things, and that would be the hallmark of a lot of the friendships that I have. They're people that are curious about what's going on. They're not really seeing themselves as the teacher of other people, that they're more cast themselves as a student. And I would call myself a student of so many things. My faith is important to me, and that certainly works itself out in the underlying reasons why I do things. But I'm not trying to be like Jesus's lawyer or a missionary or anything else. But I would say that's one of the underlying things. And for your listeners, some of them, faith would be a big deal and some not. But so you just bring all of your game. But figuring it out is I think that's the important part, to know why you're doing what you're doing, have a self-awareness about that. And then to say family, like that's a really big deal for me. And not just because you're supposed to say that your family second, but to actually then put wheels on it and find like really practical ways. You could, one of the things that happens around our family, and it isn't a regimen, it's just kind of happens that we talk to each other all day, like every day, all day. We're just constantly connecting, and they aren't great big paragraphs or really long calls, but lots of check-ins with each other. And so sometimes family dynamics don't allow that. It just got a little weird. But to be as engaged and available as you can be, and to be aware of the people around you. They say to kind of like read the room. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're at work or you're somewhere stuck in traffic, to kind of read the room and to say, I'm just trying to be, who's the character of the person? We spend a lot of time on career, but tell me the character of the man or woman that I want to be, and what are the small changes I can make to bring myself more in alignment with that?
You talked in the Dream Big framework when I was with you, which was such an amazing experience, about thinking of who do you want to be? Who do you want to
Yeah.
become?
Yeah. I want to be a grandpa. I can send the wine to the cabana, but other than that, I can just like kind of make the places where it'd be possible for people to thrive and to achieve whatever their ambitions happen to be. So I work in an office space, and it has all the flags of the countries where we're doing some work as a reminder for us to be thinking about those friends. And it's got a ball pit and surfboards and all kinds of things. So I just surround myself with all the favorite things I have from a county fair. You know those milk bottles, the old milk bottles they don't use anymore, and you throw baseballs at them? I've got one of those set up in case I have a really bad day. I just throw some baseballs at that. And I think that's just such a more productive way to deal with things that are difficult, to find another way to let off some steam than to be short with people, and then just remain super curious about the things that are going on around you.
You mentioned family, and I was privileged to meet who you call Sweet Maria, your beautiful
Yeah.
and lovely wife when we were together. You two, after so many years, still seem to be in love, and I'm sure that's true. But you're very different. What does that look like for you?
Oh, we are so different. I'm like so much a people person. I love being around people, and I'll probably be in a normal year, maybe in 120 cities and 10 countries. So I'm just like on the move. And Maria is in one city, in one country, at one address, which is our home. She don't want to do that. So she says, like, if that's your thing, like, go for it, and I'll be right here. And so this idea of being one doesn't mean to be the same. So this idea that they have these ceremonies sometimes at a wedding where they take the two candles and they come together and they light one candle and they blow out their candles. Don't blow out your candle.
Keep
You-
light the candle together, but then keep your own candles.
exactly. There's just something really kind of beautiful about that we're made uniquely, and we have our own set of gifts and things that we're good at and other things that we're bad about. But yeah, don't blow out your candle, and certainly don't blow out somebody else's candle.
You talked about, or maybe it was Maria who did that. You kind of see yourselves as you're the balloon and she's the string tethering the balloon down to earth.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And a balloon without the string, if it's made out of helium, is just going to be a lost balloon. And I would definitely be the lost balloon without Sweet Maria. And so we've identified one of the things that we enjoy doing together. And while I'm very active in that, I've got like an Irish setter. I just like love moving around. One of the things that I also am is a homebody. And so when I'm not running across somewhere far away, I'm really just sitting on my back porch at home. So this has been the last couple of weeks, it's been a season I was supposed to be in with our schools in Afghanistan and Somalia and Iraq and Uganda and all that. I just canceled it all. I just like literally in 5 minutes, I just took it all off. And it wasn't because we had a disagreement. It wasn't because I was burned out. I just seemed like it was just too much of a good thing. It was like drowning in chocolate. And so to be wise enough, I would say to your listeners to just know that instead of having this big intervention and figuring out then that when all your clothes are on the lawn, that there's a problem, why don't you just pump the brakes a little bit earlier? So that's what I do. I was actually with a guy who was in North Carolina, and I spoke at a gathering that they had, and he said, "Can I give you a ride to the hotel?" And it was just like 2 exits down the highway from where I spoke. And as we got in the car, we were driving. I looked down on the passenger side, and there's a brake there. It was the driver's ed car. So we're going down the highway, and I hit the brakes. I just wanted to see if they would work, and they did. We actually both hit the windshield. But one of the things that I want to do is know when to hit the brakes. And I think sometimes we have our relationships, and the people that love us are really tolerant and forgiving and all that. But to just know when to like kind of hit the brakes. And, I asked him, how much would it cost me to install a brake like that in our car? And it was $225. You know what's on my Christmas list? A second brake. And so if you're married or you're dating or you have somebody you love a lot, I don't know, I just get them a brake pedal in your life so that they could say, not tell you what to do, but to just let you know when they want you to hit brakes a little bit. Maybe they could hit their own. And that's actually been super helpful for me as a really gregarious guy to know when to pump the brakes. So it's been a delightful 3 or 4 weeks of just hanging out. And we bought a camp recently in Southern California. And there was a flat spot. And I was walking around, I was kind of scratching my head about this flat spot. And I went to the edge of it, and there's actually a dam face. This wasn't a flat spot. It used to be a lake, but 40 years ago, it silted in. I'm like, well, that'll preach. So I got a excavator and a front end loader. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been spending the days digging that dam out. So it can actually be useful again. It can be what it was intended to be. It was intended to do something really beautiful and refresh people. And sometimes if we're going 100 miles an hour, we aren't who we are. We'll spend all this time thinking we're providing for our families, and we won't end up providing for our families. And
I
so,
love that analogy. It's like the silt fills up, and when you get so busy in all the other stuff of life, you can let that silt build up, and you need to keep dredging it out. You need to keep dealing with the stuff if you're going to stay in love.
yeah, there's something about that, to just be self-aware enough to know, you know what, I think it's time to pump the brakes a little bit. You know what, I think we need to dig a little bit deeper on some of these things, and to use people like yourself and others that are knowledgeable to be not so much guides, because a guide will tell you what mountain to climb and what path to take. A Sherpa will say, tell me what mountain you want to go up, and I'll spend most of my time telling you what you don't need to take with you. The Sherpas are there offloading all the extra sets of ropes and your latte machine and all this other stuff that actually aren't going to help you get to the mountain you picked to go up. And so I think that's I don't see myself as a bouncer at the door telling people what they should and shouldn't do. I just want to be a greeter and welcome people. Say, what mountain do you want to climb? And here's my observation of what I found out that I didn't need to carry with me. Guilt, shame, screw ups, all that. But yet I continue to screw up. If screw ups were push ups, I'd be totally ripped. But what I'm trying to do is help other people on their journey. They pick the mountain. And I could say, is there something I could help carry for you?
The Dream Big framework. I want to just unpack one or two things about that. We spent a couple days together, and it was awesome to watch you unpack that and help people move toward their dreams. One of the things that has stuck in my mind since that time we were together 2-3 months ago was just the focus on action. You know, as followers of Jesus, some people can get trapped, I believe, into the idea that, oh, just pray and wait for God to do something. But that's only one piece. Your framework really focuses on the steps to take. And maybe you can unpack a little bit about that idea of taking action.
Yeah, in a nutshell, what we talk about is kind of moving from having these ideas that you've been thinking about, like brain candy. You have the idea, you think about the idea, you daydream about the idea, and you feel like you've been thinking about it so much, you actually think you're doing something about it, but you're actually just dreaming about it. And even my dog wags its tail when it's dreaming. So what I would do is I would say, move from the dream to actually looking for an opportunity. So if your dream was to give 1 million people fresh water, you could try to get enough money together to put together a $500 million dam, or you could go to Home Depot and get a $7 drinking fountain. So I would say, and then you could double it next year and you'll be in for $14. But it would be an important $14 because you will have already started. So you take an ambition, you look for an opportunity, and then I would apply your capabilities. But all the things you're capable of isn't all the things you were meant to do. I'll give you an example. Like, I'm a lawyer and I'm a licensed to practice in, I don't know, lots of states.
And
I'm like
countries, by the way.
yeah, it's crazy. I'm like the Rain Man. I can, I can, yeah, I can do this passing a bar exam, no sweat, anytime. But just because I'm capable of it doesn't mean I'm called to it. And so I would say if you're listening and you have some capabilities, let's say you're good with numbers, and that makes you a terrific accountant, but you're actually, what your desire is to help children that are either across the street or across an ocean, whatever it is. But I wouldn't be restricted by your capabilities. What I'd be looking for is an opportunity. And then what we talked about is to expect some setbacks along the way. You'll have a dream and ambition. I know I had one in high school. I wanted to get a date. It didn't quite happen. I got close once. There was a gal named Paula, and I invited her to the prom, and she'd said she'd go, but then she got a better offer from somebody else, which was actually everybody other than me. And so she told me she wasn't going to go to the prom with me. And I was like so bummed out. And it'll happen. It'll be a relationship, a career. It was a job promotion. It was a something. I had a home once that burned down.
Oh,
It'll be this dream that you had that just burned down. And you got to decide at that point, what are you going to do when you face a real setback? And there's not one size fits all answer, but I would say get busy. What I did when this log home of mine burned down, I bought a 150-foot crane and I started swinging logs again. And it took me 3 years and 3 months of swinging logs before that thing was rebuilt. But I don't know, just because your dream burned down doesn't mean it needs to stay burned down. And so I would say that idea of sustaining belief means to just hang on to this dream that you had.
I hear people get stuck in that so often. They feel like they've tried something, whether it's as simple as trying to find a friend, to reach out and connect with somebody, or maybe it's a business or ministry they try to start and they feel like they put their effort into this and things don't go as they planned and they feel like they failed. And so now they feel stuck. And that idea of that's part of what normally happens.
Yeah, I can sure empathize with that. And it's easy to use. You're just kind of looking for a coat hanger to hang this experience on. And I've heard so many people say that God shut the door. And I just want to hurl every time I hear that, because you have this ambition, this beautiful dream. It's been part of your unique makeup and chemistry for 20 years. And then you finally ask somebody named Billy or Sally or whoever if you can have an opportunity to do it. And they say no. And then you go back and say, God closed the door. That is not the transaction at all that happened. What happened is you asked Billy or Sally, and they said no. God didn't say no.
Yeah.
Just Billy said no. And so I would just, like, back in Texas, they don't just, look for the lock for the door. They'll shoot the hinges right off. Like, one of the things, go Texas on it. Just don't stand at the door, knock like Jesus, and then walk away, because he doesn't walk away, and I want you either to. You've got a beautiful ambition, unless your ambition is to knock off liquor stores. I just give that thing a quarter of a twist the other way. But if it's a beautiful, enduring ambition, man, get after that thing. Stay on it.
Bob, you have been around the world, and you mentioned earlier Uganda, India, Iraq, Nepal, Afghanistan, Somalia, and I'm sure you experienced some pretty big obstacles along the way. Let me just ask, is there a story or an event that kind of illustrates that you've pushed through and just seen something happen?
Well, I won't tell you the country, but I got arrested in this one country and thrown
Ooh.
in jail. And then they kicked me out of the country. What they were doing in this country, they were trafficking children.
Ooh.
They were literally buying and selling children. I'm like, oh, heck no. And so we got some surveillance of the bad guys doing this, and did some things that got a lot of people upset. But I'm like, whatever, sue me. The idea God loves kids. He doesn't seem to like lawyers like me very much, but he's nuts about kids. And so one of the things that I'm learning along the way is if you know why you're doing what you're doing, that there's going to be a couple setbacks you'll encounter along the way, and don't get freaked out. Just remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, and then get on with it. And that doesn't make you heroic. It just makes you a participant. And don't go across an ocean, go across the street. Find somebody who you know that's hurting right now and find them and find some way to intersect them. I've got a neighbor named Pat, and every Monday he takes out my garbage. Is that crazy?
Wow.
I'm not the only guy. He takes out the garbage of every single person on the block, and then he gets in his jet and goes across the country to speak to whoever he's going to speak to. That's crazy. It was so hard for me to receive that. When the first morning I heard somebody rustling around on the side of my house, I'm like, what the heck? And it's Pat, and he's rolling my garbage out onto the street. I'm like, Pat, what are you doing? Man, he's just like, buddy, I love you. Isn't that great? Well, one
Wow.
of the things, he's not going to be known as the guy with the jet. He's going to be known as the guy that on Monday mornings takes everybody's garbage out. What we need to do is look for opportunities right where we are to do something beautiful. Jesus talked about that to a lawyer. He said, what's the big commandment? He said, two things: love God with your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor. And I just want to be that guy. I just want to see what Pat's doing, and I want to look for opportunities. And so some of our greatest ambitions aren't going to be found far, far away. It'll be like pausing, pumping the brakes long enough to slow down and to see a need right in front of you. If you're an employer, send a couple of your employees home a little early. Give them your car. No, literally. Say, here it is, pink slip and all. I know that sounds it's like a weird economy, but that's what Jesus was talking about all the time. He said, you want to be first? Like, go be last. You want to be like the big leader? Be the servant. It was always flipping it. And so we have these org charts that have you at the top if you're owning this place, and everybody reporting to you. I just flip that thing. I'd put it on its side or upended, or I'd do something. And that's where you end up growing and learning and all that. Lose your title. Like nobody's impressed by titles and all that jazz. I'm just like the chief and balloon inflator over here. I'm
Well,
that guy.
people are a big deal to you, Bob. You know, your books, Love Does Everybody Always, your, nonprofit, Love Does, and just the way you make yourself available. People are a really big deal to you, whether it's your family or other people. That kind of seems like a core of everything that you get involved with.
Well, that's one of the things, like I just am so uh, uh, curious about what will happen in people's lives that doing some of these things feels totally selfish on my part. I'm just like really just curious about things. So I want to see how it's going to turn out. I want to see what'll have, curious about the origins of words and phrases and things. Do you know, I was looking up, it's a slinky. Remember those? Did you play with one of those when you were a kid?
I did.
Yeah,
I
there was a
had one.
guy. Yeah, there was a guy. He was actually an engineer, and his job was to go onto these great big boats, and all the instruments were getting damaged because the boats would hit big waves, and they would jostle the instruments around. They stop working. So he had a spring that he was going to mount all of the instruments to, and sure enough, they hit a wave. The spring falls off the shelf, and it does one of those ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. And he brought it home and showed it to his wife, and she said, this would make an awesome toy. It's always the women that figure it out first. And so the thing about the slinky, they would never charge more than $1 for them because they never wanted to have it be that a kid couldn't afford a toy. Isn't that
Mm.
beautiful? That would be an example of an ambition. He was setting out to build a spring-mounted instrument thing. The spring falls off. He sees this opportunity. He gets somebody he loves to give him some input on it. He has a guiding principle. Every kid should be able to afford a toy. And the Slinky is born 63 million Slinkies later. There's something just beautiful and enduring about that. And so as we stay really curious about not only our stories, but the stories of the people around us, then what I just jumped on Amazon. As soon as I read that, I bought a dozen Slinkies. If you're listening and you don't want to get on Amazon and spend $1 or $2 on a Slinky, you're not alive. One of the things that I want to do is to learn this stuff and then do something about it. Because now I like Slinkies a lot more than I did before because I
Yeah.
learned something about them.
Yeah. Wow. Great encouragement, Bob. And if somebody is listening and they're one of those 3 people in the United States that doesn't know who Bob Gough is, how would they find you and connect with what you're doing?
Oh, probably on the back of a milk carton or something. Like, I'm just an easy guy to find. I'm all over the place. But boy, I'm just so grateful for what you're doing and have these conversations with people. And what I hope is that the people that are listening will have found something in this podcast or another one of yours, and that they'll move from like this, from the head to the heart. They'll move from the heart to the arms, right to the hands, and you'll actually start doing this stuff, because I don't care how many boats are floating on the Sea of Galilee, and I could care less what the name love is in 4 words in Greek. Like agape, phileo, like whatever. Just be aware of the stories that have impacted you, like when you've actually received love from somebody, when somebody did something selfless, because every selfless act is a declaration of faith. And if we figure out that, man, you just won the jackpot.
That's tweetable. Yeah, I'll remember that one. Thanks so much, Bob. This has been often, and many blessings to you, your family, this holiday season, and all the things that you are doing for people.
Oh, thanks a million for having me on. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. If you didn't smile as you were listening to that, maybe you weren't really listening. There's just something about being around somebody like Bob Gough that lifts your spirits and that makes you feel like, yeah, I can do it too. Now, you're not going to have to go to look at the milk cartons to find out more about Bob Gough. If you aren't aware of who he is and would like to find out more, there are links in the show notes. lovedoes.org, bobgough.com. We'll have links to his books and his social media profile as well. So check that out. It's a place to get involved if you want to make a difference in some of these countries where Bob is doing this great work, and also to find encouragement for the dream that God has put in you. Let that be something you do. Let that be an action you take in this new year. Now, as far as the relationship part, Bob and I talked about how important connecting with other people is. If that is a challenge for you, I want to invite you to be part of our online community, the Fully Alive group. Now, ideally, there are people in your life, in your world, in your church that are lifting you up and supporting you and bringing you the nourishment that you need and that you can help. But so many people that I hear from feel like they aren't getting that in their world. Well, in our online community, we provide support, information, resources, questions and answers, connections that you may be challenged to find in your world where you are right now. So go to fullyalivegroup.com or click on the link in the show notes, and I would love you to be part of our encouraging online community. And thank you for being part of our podcast family especially. It would mean a lot if you would tell your friends about Relationship Prescriptions, maybe share this with them. That means a great deal. I think about you and pray for you often. And now, until next time, may God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol. Our purpose is to provide trustworthy resources that help you and others live fully alive in every way as God intended. If you would like to help others experience transformation in their lives and relationships, we invite you to partner with us. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to the number 512-980-1620, or visit our website at drcarolministries.com/donate to make a one-time contribution or monthly gift. Your financial support allows us to expand our message and to help others. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.